The massive conference hall on Kepler Station buzzed with the excited chatter of 1,000 different species. Representatives from across the Galactic Council had gathered for what was being called the most important strategic meeting in decades. The topic: humanity's recent application to join the Galactic Defense Force. Commander Zektar of the Vorthak Empire adjusted his ceremonial armor as he made his way through the crowd. His 4 arms moved with practiced military precision, and his reptilian features bore the scars of countless battles. Around him, delegates whispered in hushed tones about the strange bipedal species that had emerged from the Outer Rim territories. "Have you seen their physical specifications?" chittered Ambassador Velnari, her insectoid mandibles clicking nervously. "They're so small, barely 2 meters tall, only 2 arms, and they don't even have natural armor plating." Council Admiral Thross, a massive bear-like creature from the Ursani Republic, laughed heartily. "I've reviewed their military records. Impressive for a young species, certainly, but they've only fought against other humans. They have no experience with real warfare." Zektar remained silent, but something cold settled in his stomach. He had heard whispers, fragments of reports from the outer colonies, stories that made no sense, tales so outrageous that most dismissed them as propaganda or fear-mongering. The Great Hall fell silent as Supreme Chancellor Mordun took the podium. The ancient ethereal's form shimmered with bioluminescent patterns as he addressed the assembly. "Honored delegates, we gather today to discuss the human request for military integration. While their technological advancement is notable, concerns have been raised about their combat effectiveness against established galactic threats." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Zektar watched as holographic displays showed human soldiers in action. They moved efficiently, yes, but compared to the towering Korthak warriors or the lightning-fast Zephyrian strike teams, they seemed almost fragile. "I propose we begin with limited engagements," continued the Chancellor. "Perhaps border patrol duties or support roles while they acclimate to proper galactic warfare standards." General Carrix of the Molten Claw Legion stood, his volcanic rock skin glowing with inner heat. "With respect, Chancellor, why waste resources on training? The Void Swarm grows stronger each day. We need proven warriors, not experiments in diplomacy." The debate that followed was predictable. The militaristic factions argued for rejection, while the diplomatic corps pushed for gradual integration. Through it all, Zektar found himself thinking about a classified report he had read just days earlier. It had come from Captain Yilmoth, one of his most trusted field commanders, stationed on a remote listening post near human space. The report spoke of a human merchant vessel that had been attacked by Crimson Fang pirates. What should have been a routine raid had turned into something else entirely. According to the survivors, the humans had not surrendered when faced with overwhelming odds. They had not pleaded for mercy or offered tribute. Instead, they had fought back with a ferocity that left the pirate crew traumatized. The few pirates who escaped spoke of humans who refused to die, who continued fighting with wounds that should have been fatal, who turned everyday objects into weapons with terrifying creativity. But that was just one incident. Surely an anomaly. The Chancellor's voice brought Zektar back to the present. "We shall put it to a vote. All in favor of accepting humans into the Defense Force with full combat roles." A scattering of hands, claws, and appendages rose, perhaps a dozen out of nearly 1,000. Those in favor of limited support roles? A larger number, but still a minority. Those in favor of rejection? The majority of the assembly raised their approval. The motion was clear. Then it is decided. The human application for military service is rejected. They may reapply in 50 standard years after gaining more experience. As the assembly began to disperse, Zektar felt compelled to speak. He had served in the Defense Force for over 3 centuries, had fought in campaigns across 12 systems, and had earned the respect of warriors from every major species. If anyone's voice carried weight in military matters, it was his. "Chancellor," he called out, his voice carrying across the hall, "I request permission to address the assembly." The Chancellor's luminescent patterns shifted to show mild surprise. "Of course, Commander. The floor is yours." Zektar made his way to the podium, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes upon him. He had not planned this moment, but something deep in his warrior's instincts told him that a grave mistake was being made. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice carrying the authority of centuries of command. "I stand before you as one who has faced the worst threats our galaxy has to offer. I have fought the Void Swarm in the Titan Nebula, I have led charges against the Crimson Fang in the asteroid wars. I have stood against the Machine Collective on the burning plains of Zirion Prime. The hall grew quiet, sensing the gravity in his tone. In all my years of service, I have learned to recognize the signs of a true predator species. It is not always about size or natural weapons. Sometimes, the deadliest hunters are those that appear harmless until the moment they strike. General Carrick snorted dismissively. Commander Zektar, surely you're not suggesting that these soft-skinned humans pose any threat to established military powers? Zektar's 4 eyes fixed on the general with unwavering intensity. That is exactly what I'm suggesting. And more than that, I'm warning this council that rejecting their application may be the greatest strategic error in our history. The murmurs that followed were not of agreement but of confusion and skepticism. Ambassador Velnari's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. Commander, with all respect for your service record, these humans have barely mastered interstellar travel. Their weapons are primitive projectile throwers and chemical explosives. How could they possibly threaten species with energy shields and plasma weaponry? Zektar had expected this question. He activated his personal data pad and projected a series of images into the air above the podium. These are recent intelligence reports from the border regions. 3 months ago, the merchant vessel Golden Tide was attacked by a full pack of Crimson Fang raiders. The ship carried 73 humans and minimal defensive capabilities. The projection showed the aftermath of the battle. Debris fields, disabled pirate vessels, and casualty reports. The pirates deployed 47 fighters and 3 heavy assault cruisers. Standard protocol suggests the merchant vessel should have been overwhelmed within minutes. Zektar's voice grew darker. Instead, the humans turned their cargo ship into a weapon. They used industrial equipment to create improvised weapon systems. They employed tactics that are not found in any military doctrine I have ever studied. He switched to another image, showing the medical reports from the surviving pirates. The survivors speak of humans who continued fighting with injuries that would incapacitate any of our warriors. They describe acts of individual courage and ferocity that defy rational explanation. Most disturbing of all, they report that the humans seem to enjoy the combat. General Carrick leaned forward, his rocky features showing genuine interest for the first time. What were the final casualty numbers? Of the 73 humans aboard the merchant vessel, 12 died in the initial assault. The remaining 61 not only repelled the attack but captured 2 of the pirate vessels intact. Of the 47 pirate fighters, only 7 survived to tell this tale. A stunned silence fell over the assembly. These numbers seemed impossible. The Crimson Fang were notorious for their ruthlessness and skill in combat. For a civilian human vessel to not only survive but to achieve such a decisive victory was beyond calculation. That must be an exaggeration, stuttered Ambassador Velnari. No civilian vessel could achieve such results against trained pirates. Zektar pulled up another file. This is the second incident. The research station, New Horizon, came under attack by a Void Swarm scouting force. The station was staffed by 17 humans conducting xenobiology research. They had no military training and were equipped only with basic scientific equipment. The projection showed another battlefield report, even more shocking than the first. The Void Swarm deployed biomechanical constructs specifically designed to overwhelm research facilities. These creatures can tear through reinforced hull plating with their natural weapons. The attack should have resulted in total casualties within the first hour. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the assembly. Instead, the humans held the station for 4 days. They converted laboratory equipment into defensive systems, used their knowledge of biology to develop countermeasures against the void constructs, and implemented a defense strategy so effective that when our relief force arrived, we found the station intact and surrounded by the corpses of over 200 void organisms. The silence that followed was different now, no longer skeptical, but afraid. 17 humans, Zektar continued, with no combat training, no military equipment, and no backup, achieved what entire Defense Force battalions have struggled to accomplish. And when our rescue ships arrived, the humans were already planning a counterattack to track the Void Swarm back to their source. Council Admiral Thross shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Commander, these incidents, while impressive, represent only isolated cases. Surely you're not suggesting that an entire species could demonstrate such capabilities consistently? Zektar had saved the most disturbing report for last. 1 month ago, I received word from Captain Yilmoth regarding a human military exercise. Our listening posts had detected unusual energy signatures from a human training facility on their home world. The projection changed to show a desolate landscape marked by what appeared to be the aftermath of a massive battle. The humans were conducting what they called war games. Two groups of their soldiers, each numbering 100 individuals, were placed in a controlled environment and ordered to compete for territorial objectives. He highlighted specific areas of the battlefield projection. This is the result of a single day's training exercise. Observe the tactical innovations, the improvised fortifications, the evidence of psychological warfare tactics that are not found in any known military doctrine. The image zoomed in on various sections of the battlefield, showing elaborate traps, modified weapons, and strategic positions that demonstrated an instinctive understanding of warfare that typically took centuries for a species to develop. Our analysis indicates that these humans approached their training exercise with the same intensity and creativity that they brought to life or death situations. They did not simply follow established protocols. They rewrote the rules of engagement in real time. Admiral Thross leaned forward, studying the images with professional interest. What were their casualty rates during this exercise? 0. Zektar replied simply. They were using training weapons that could not cause permanent injury. But our behavioral analysts noted that both sides fought as if their actual lives depended on the outcome. They pushed themselves beyond what should have been possible physical and mental limits, all for the sake of training. The implications hung heavy in the air. A species that approached training exercises with the same ferocity they brought to actual combat was unprecedented in galactic history. Chancellor Mordun's luminescent patterns shifted to show deep contemplation. Commander Zektar. While these reports are indeed remarkable, I fail to see how they change the fundamental question. Humans may show promise, but they remain inexperienced in galactic warfare. Surely gradual integration remains the prudent course. Zektar felt the weight of his next words before he spoke them. What he was about to reveal would change everything. With respect, Chancellor, I believe we are making a critical error in our assessment. We are evaluating humans as if they were like us, as if they had developed along the same evolutionary paths that shaped our concepts of warfare and survival. He activated one final projection, this one showing comparative biological data. Every species in this council evolved on worlds where they were either apex predators or existed in environments where cooperation was essential for survival. We developed intelligence as a tool for hunting or for building defensive communities. The projection showed evolutionary trees for the major galactic species, each following predictable patterns of development. Humans are different. They evolved on a world where they were simultaneously predator and prey, where survival required not just intelligence or cooperation, but adaptability, aggression, and an almost pathological refusal to accept defeat. He highlighted specific data points in the human biological profile. Their physiology reflects this. They can function on minimal sleep, survive injuries that would be fatal to most species, and their brain chemistry actually rewards them for engaging in dangerous or challenging situations. They produce biochemical compounds that not only suppress pain but actively enhance performance under stress. General Carrick studied the data with growing unease. You're suggesting they're biologically designed for warfare? I'm suggesting something far more concerning than that, Zektar replied grimly. I'm suggesting they're biologically designed to enjoy warfare. Every human conflict in their history has ended not with the losing side surrendering when defeat became certain, but with them fighting until they achieved victory, or were physically incapable of continuing. The silence that followed was deafening. The implications were staggering. A species that not only excelled at combat but actually derived satisfaction from it was unlike anything the galaxy had encountered. There's one more thing, Zektar continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. The humans who applied for Defense Force membership, they weren't their best soldiers. They were volunteers from their civilian population who wanted to try something new. The emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council convened just 12 hours after Commander Zektar's shocking revelation. Word had spread quickly through the corridors of Kepler Station, and what had begun as routine bureaucratic proceedings now carried the weight of galactic security. Admiral Thross paced nervously in his private quarters before the meeting, reviewing classified intelligence reports that had suddenly taken on terrifying new meaning. The humans weren't just another species seeking membership in their military alliance. If Zektar's assessment was correct, they were something unprecedented in known galactic history. The conference room was smaller this time, containing only the senior military leadership from the major powers. Chancellor Mordun's luminescent patterns flickered with agitation as he called the session to order. "We are here to address the concerns raised by Commander Zektar regarding the human species," the Chancellor began. "I have spent the night reviewing additional intelligence, and I must admit that the picture that emerges is troubling." General Carrick's activated a holographic display showing intercepted human military transmissions. "We've been monitoring their communications more closely since yesterday's revelation. What we discovered challenges everything we thought we knew about their capabilities." The display showed tactical discussions between human military units during routine training exercises. Even Admiral Thross, with his extensive experience, found the level of strategic sophistication disturbing. "They discuss battle scenarios that we classify as theoretical impossibilities," Carrick's continued. "Multi-dimensional assault patterns, resource optimization under extreme scarcity, psychological warfare techniques that violate several galactic conventions on ethical combat." Commander Zektar stood from his position at the conference table. "With your permission, I'd like to share additional findings from our intelligence analysis. What we discovered goes far beyond individual combat effectiveness." The Chancellor gestured for him to proceed. "Our xenoanthropologists have been studying human cultural development, particularly their approach to conflict resolution," Zektar said, activating his own data projections. "What they found is that humans possess something we have no equivalent for in any known language." The display showed human historical records, conflicts spanning millennia of development. They call it total war. The concept involves mobilizing every available resource, every individual, and every technological capability toward achieving complete victory over an opponent. They do not fight until they reach an acceptable compromise. They fight until their enemy no longer exists as a functional threat. Ambassador Velnari's mandibles clicked rapidly in distress. "Surely that's an exaggeration. Every civilized species understands the concept of proportional response and negotiated settlement." Zektar highlighted specific historical examples. In their most recent global conflict, humans faced an enemy that controlled significant territory and possessed advanced military technology. When conventional tactics proved insufficient, they developed weapons capable of destroying entire cities. They did not deploy these weapons as a demonstration of power or as a negotiating tool. They used them to achieve unconditional surrender. The implications settled over the assembly like a cold fog. The concept of fighting until total victory was achieved, regardless of cost, was alien to every other species in the galaxy. "But surely that was an extreme case," pressed Admiral Thross. "Their current conflicts must show more restraint?" "That's what makes this even more concerning," Zektar replied grimly. "Humans have not fought a major war among themselves in over 2 centuries. They have redirected this same total commitment toward other challenges: environmental restoration, technological advancement, space exploration. They approach peaceful endeavors with the same intensity they once brought to warfare." General Carrick leaned forward, studying the data with professional interest. "Are you suggesting they could apply this total war mentality to galactic conflicts?" "I'm suggesting something worse," Zektar answered. "I'm suggesting they might apply it to galactic peace." The silence that followed was profound. The idea of a species that approached peaceful cooperation with the same ruthless efficiency they brought to warfare was both inspiring and terrifying. Chancellor Mordun's patterns shifted to show deep concern. "Commander, what exactly are you recommending? Should we treat humans as a potential threat to galactic stability?" Before Zektar could answer, an urgent chime echoed through the conference room. The chamber's communication system activated, displaying the face of Captain Yilmoth from the border listening post. "Honored Council, I apologize for the interruption, but we have a developing situation that requires immediate attention." The captain's normally composed demeanor showed visible strain, and several of his natural armor plates were scarred from recent combat. "Captain, report your status," Admiral Thross commanded. "Sir, 6 hours ago we detected a massive void swarm incursion in the Tertius system. Intelligence estimates suggest this is their largest assault force in decades, numbering over 10,000 biomechanical constructs." The assembled leaders felt their confidence drain. Void swarm incursions of this magnitude typically required the combined efforts of multiple fleet groups to repel. "Our nearest defense force units are 72 hours away," Captain Yilmoth continued. "The civilian populations on Tertius Prime and the mining colonies cannot be evacuated in time." General Carrick stood abruptly. "Captain, what are your evacuation estimates? How many civilians are we looking at?" Sir, approximately 2.3 million beings across 14 settlements. But that's not why I'm contacting you directly. The captain's expression shifted to something between amazement and fear. There was a human merchant convoy in the system when the incursion began. 7 cargo vessels with a total crew complement of approximately 400 humans. Standard protocol would be for civilian vessels to retreat immediately and report the incursion to Defense Force Command. Admiral Thross felt a cold certainty settle in his stomach. Captain, please tell me the humans followed standard protocol. Sir, the humans did something unprecedented. When they detected the Void Swarm approach, they sent a message to all civilian settlements in the system. The message was simple. Take cover. We'll handle this. The conference room erupted in shocked murmurs. 400 civilian humans facing 10,000 void constructs was beyond suicide. It was incomprehensible. Captain, Chancellor Mordoon interjected, his luminescent patterns flashing urgent queries. Please confirm that you said civilian humans, not military personnel? Confirmed, sir. Merchant crews, cargo handlers, and transport pilots. According to their manifest data, most of them have never seen combat beyond the pirate encounters. Commander Zektar reported. Zektar leaned forward, dreading the answer to his next question. Captain, what is the current status of the engagement? Captain Yilmoth's expression shifted to something approaching disbelief. Sir, that's why I'm making this emergency contact. The humans have been engaged with the Void Swarm for 6 hours. Current estimates show they have destroyed approximately 40% of the enemy force. The silence that followed was absolute. Such numbers were impossible. A small merchant convoy could not achieve what required coordinated fleet actions. Captain, General Carrix said slowly, please repeat your last statement. I want to ensure there's no communication error. Sir, the humans have destroyed nearly 4,000 void constructs and are actively pursuing the remainder of the swarm. They have converted their merchant vessels into assault platforms, using improvised modifications that our engineering corps claims should be physically impossible. Admiral Thross slumped in his chair. Casualties among the human force? 17 killed, 31 wounded. They have not lost a single vessel. The impossibility of the situation struck every member of the council simultaneously. Not only were the humans achieving military success against overwhelming odds, they were doing so while suffering minimal casualties themselves. Captain, are you certain these are civilian crews? Ambassador Velnari asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Positive identification confirmed, ma'am. We have the personal records of every human in that convoy. The most militarily experienced individual among them served as a security guard for 2 years. The rest are merchants, engineers, and transport specialists. Chancellor Mordoon's patterns displayed what could only be described as existential panic. Captain, what tactical methods are the humans employing? Sir, that's what makes this most disturbing. They're not following any known tactical doctrine. They appear to be creating new strategies in real time, adapting to each wave of void constructs with solutions that our military analysts describe as impossibly creative. Captain Yilmoth activated a tactical display showing the battle in progress. The human vessels moved in patterns that defied conventional space combat theory. Using the Void Swarm's own momentum and biological programming against them, they've turned their cargo holds into manufacturing facilities, producing weapons and defensive systems using raw materials from their trade goods. They've somehow reprogrammed merchant-grade navigation computers to coordinate multi-vessel assault formations that require military-grade battle management systems. General Carrix studied the tactical display with growing unease. Captain, in your professional assessment, what would be required to achieve similar results using our conventional forces? Sir, to achieve equivalent success against a void swarm of this magnitude, we would deploy a minimum of 3 heavy battle groups with full support vessels. Total personnel requirement would be approximately 50,000 trained military specialists with specialized anti-swarm equipment. The comparison was staggering. 400 untrained humans were achieving what would normally require 50,000 elite soldiers. There's something else, Captain Yilmoth continued, his voice dropping to barely audible levels. We've been monitoring human internal communications during the battle. They're not treating this as a desperate fight for survival. They're treating it as an interesting problem to solve. Admiral Thross felt something cold settle in his core. Explain, sir. Their communications contain discussions of optimization strategies, requests for resource sharing to improve efficiency, and suggestions for tactical modifications. They sound like engineers working on a challenging but engaging project, not soldiers fighting for their lives. The implications were beyond disturbing. A species that approached mortal combat as an intellectual exercise possessed a mindset that no other known intelligence had ever demonstrated. Commander Zektar stood slowly, feeling the weight of his original warning settling over the assembly like a death shroud. "Honored colleagues," he said quietly, "I believe we are witnessing something that changes everything we thought we knew about the nature of intelligence in this galaxy." He activated his own display, showing comparative combat effectiveness ratios. Every species in this room required centuries or millennia to develop effective military doctrines. We learned through trial and error, through studying the successes and failures of previous generations. We built our combat effectiveness on the foundation of accumulated experience. He highlighted the human performance data from the ongoing battle. Humans appear to be developing combat doctrine in real time. They are not relying on previously established strategies. They are creating new forms of warfare as the situation demands, and they are doing so while maintaining peak performance under extreme stress. Chancellor Mordoon's luminescent patterns shifted to display what could only be interpreted as fear. "Commander, what are you suggesting we do with this information?" Before Zektar could answer, Captain Yilmoth's voice interrupted from the communication display. "Honored Council, I have an urgent update. The human convoy has achieved complete victory over the Void Swarm incursion. All enemy constructs have been destroyed or disabled. The humans are now conducting rescue operations for the civilian populations they protected." The silence that followed stretched for long moments. "Captain," Admiral Thross asked finally, "what is the current status of the human force?" "Sir, they have suffered an additional 3 casualties during the final phase of combat. Total losses: 20 killed, 31 wounded. All 7 vessels remain operational and are currently providing medical assistance and emergency supplies to the civilian colonies." General Carrick's leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed by the implications. A merchant convoy just achieved what would normally require a full fleet engagement, suffered minimal casualties, and is now conducting humanitarian operations. "Sir," Captain Yilmoth continued, "there's one final detail that I believe the Council needs to know. When the battle concluded, the human convoy commander sent a message to our monitoring station." "What did the message say?" Chancellor Mordoon asked. "The message was, 'Thank you for monitoring our activities. We hope this demonstration proves useful for your evaluation of our Defense Force application. We look forward to working with you as allies rather than remaining isolated as unknown neighbors.'" The weight of realization struck every member of the Council simultaneously. The humans had known they were being watched. They had known their actions would be reported to the galactic leadership. The entire engagement had been, in effect, a demonstration of their capabilities. Commander Zektar felt a chill run through his four-armed frame as the true implications became clear. The humans had not merely defended themselves against a Void Swarm attack. They had orchestrated a tactical demonstration designed to completely rewrite the galactic community's assessment of human military potential. And if they were capable of such strategic thinking on this level, what other capabilities might they be concealing? The emergency vote was called within hours of Captain Yilmoth's final transmission. Every military leader, diplomat, and strategic advisor across the Galactic Council had access to the complete battle recordings from the Tertia system engagement. The footage was simultaneously inspiring and terrifying. Admiral Thross had spent the intervening time reviewing the tactical analysis with his best military minds. The consensus was unanimous and disturbing. The humans had not simply defeated a major Void Swarm incursion. They had done so using strategies that redefined the fundamental principles of space combat. The weapon systems they improvised during combat violate 3 separate laws of physics, reported Chief Engineer Morcax, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. According to our models, their modifications should have resulted in catastrophic system failures. Instead, they achieved power efficiency ratings that exceed our most advanced military designs. General Carricks studied the engineering reports with growing unease. "You're telling me that untrained civilian humans created better weapons than our military research divisions?" "I'm telling you something worse than that," Morcax replied. "I'm telling you they did it in 6 hours using cargo materials and merchant-grade equipment. Our most advanced research facilities would require months to achieve similar innovations, assuming they could achieve them at all." The revelation hung heavy in the air. The humans possessed not just combat effectiveness, but a level of technological adaptability that challenged the foundations of galactic engineering theory. Commander Zektar entered the briefing room carrying a classified datapad. His expression was grim as he approached the assembled leadership. "I've received the complete psychological analysis of the human combat communications," he announced. "The findings are more disturbing than anything we've discovered so far." He activated a holographic display showing waveform analysis of human voice communications during the battle. Our xenopsychologists analyzed the stress indicators, emotional resonance patterns, and decision-making processes demonstrated by the humans during combat. What they found contradicts every known model of sapient behavior under extreme pressure. Chancellor Mordoon materialized in the center of the room, his ethereal form pulsing with concerned energy. "Commander, please elaborate." "The humans showed decreasing stress levels as the combat intensified," Zektar explained, highlighting specific data points. "Every other known species exhibits rising stress markers when faced with mortal danger. Humans demonstrated the opposite pattern. They became more focused, more creative, and more cooperative as the threat level increased." Admiral Thross leaned forward, studying the psychological profiles. "Are you suggesting they perform better under life-threatening pressure?" "I'm suggesting something far more significant," Zektar replied. "I'm suggesting that humans may be the only known species that is psychologically optimized for warfare. While the rest of us developed intelligence as a survival tool, humans appear to have developed intelligence as a weapon." The implications were staggering. A species that became more effective when faced with mortal danger, possessed capabilities that could reshape the balance of power across the entire galaxy. General Carrick's activated his own data display, showing strategic projections. "We've run simulation models based on human performance in the Tertius engagement. The results are problematic." The display showed various conflict scenarios, each adapted to include human-level performance parameters. If humans were to join the defense force with full combat roles, our tactical effectiveness would increase by a minimum of 300%. Standard engagement protocols would become obsolete. Enemy forces that currently require major fleet actions could be handled by small human units. Ambassador Velnari's mandibles clicked nervously as she studied the projections. "That sounds like positive development. Why do you describe it as problematic?" "Because," General Carrick replied grimly, "the same capabilities that make humans incredibly effective allies would make them absolutely devastating enemies." He shifted the display to show defensive scenarios, analyzing how galactic forces might fare against human military doctrine. Based on their demonstrated tactical innovation and adaptability, a human military force would require approximately 10 times the conventional resources to contain. Their ability to create effective weapons from civilian materials means that even civilian populations could pose significant military threats. The silence that followed was profound. The galactic community had never encountered a species that represented such a dramatic shift in military capability. Chancellor Mordoon's luminescent patterns displayed deep contemplation. "What recommendations do our strategic analysts offer?" Before anyone could respond, the conference room's communication system activated. The face of human ambassador Sarah Chen appeared on the main display, her expression calm and professional. "Honored members of the Galactic Defense Council," she began. "I hope you'll forgive the interruption. I understand you're currently discussing the recent events in the Tertius system." The assembled leaders exchanged nervous glances. No one had authorized communication with human representatives during the closed strategic session. "Ambassador Chen," Chancellor Mordoon replied carefully, "how are you accessing this secure communication channel?" The humans smiled with what appeared to be genuine friendliness. "We've been monitoring your discussions because we felt it was important to provide context for your deliberations. We understand that our actions in the Tertius system may have been surprising." Admiral Thross felt a chill settle in his core. "Ambassador, are you stating that humans have compromised our secure military communications?" "Not compromised," Sarah Chen replied patiently. "Enhanced. We've made some modifications to your communication protocols that allow for more efficient information sharing. We thought this might be helpful for future cooperation." The casual admission that humans had penetrated and modified Defense Council security systems without detection sent waves of shock through the assembly. General Carrick leaned forward, his volcanic features glowing with inner heat. "Ambassador, such actions could be interpreted as acts of espionage or even warfare." Sarah Chen's expression remained pleasantly diplomatic. "General, we prefer to think of it as proactive cooperation. We've been aware that the Council has been observing and analyzing human activities. We thought it only fair to observe and analyze Council activities in return. Commander Zektar felt his worst fears being confirmed. The humans were not just militarily capable. They possessed intelligence-gathering capabilities that had allowed them to monitor the galactic community's most secure operations. Ambassador, he said slowly, how long have humans been monitoring Council activities? Since shortly after we submitted our original application for Defense Force membership, she replied matter-of-factly. We wanted to understand the decision-making processes and strategic concerns that would influence your evaluation. The revelation hit the Assembly like a physical blow. The humans had been conducting comprehensive intelligence operations against the galactic community for months, apparently without anyone detecting their activities. Chancellor Mordoon's patterns shifted to display what could only be interpreted as alarm. Ambassador Chen, such extensive surveillance operations represent a serious breach of galactic law and diplomatic protocol. We understand your concern, Sarah Chen replied, but we felt that transparency would be more productive than continued mutual surveillance, which is why we're contacting you now to discuss the results of our respective intelligence analyses. She activated her own holographic display, showing detailed assessments of galactic military capabilities, strategic weaknesses, and political structures. We've completed our evaluation of galactic defense capabilities and strategic challenges. We believe we can offer significant assistance with several ongoing security concerns, including the Void Swarm expansion, Crimson Fang piracy, and the potential threat from the Machine Collective. The casual manner in which she discussed comprehensive intelligence assessments of galactic security threats was more disturbing than any military demonstration. Admiral Thross studied the human intelligence reports with professional interest and growing fear. Ambassador, these assessments are remarkably detailed. How did you gather this information? A combination of electronic surveillance, physical reconnaissance, and cultural analysis, she replied. We've found that most galactic species have very predictable behavioral patterns. Your security measures are quite effective against conventional threats, but they weren't designed to counter human methodology. General Carrick's rocky features shifted to show deep concern. Ambassador, what exactly is human methodology? Sarah Chen's smile became slightly more pronounced. We approach problems differently than other species, where you see established protocols and accepted limitations. We see opportunities for innovation and improvement. Where you see impossible challenges, we see interesting puzzles that require creative solutions. She highlighted specific sections of her intelligence reports. For example, the Void Swarm has been expanding steadily for decades because galactic forces have focused on containment rather than elimination. You've accepted that the swarm represents an ongoing threat that must be managed rather than resolved. The display showed tactical projections that made the assembled leaders deeply uncomfortable. From a human perspective, the Void Swarm represents a solvable problem that has been allowed to persist due to insufficient commitment to total victory. Given appropriate resources and strategic freedom, we estimate that the entire swarm could be eliminated within 18 months. The silence that followed was deafening. The idea that the galaxy's most persistent and dangerous threat could be completely eliminated was beyond the imagination of any conventional strategist. Commander Zektar found his voice first. Ambassador, such claims seem optimistic. The Void Swarm has resisted every attempt at elimination for over 2 centuries. Because, Sarah Chen replied patiently, no one has attempted total war against them. Every previous engagement has been defensive or limited in scope. Humans would approach the problem differently. She displayed strategic frameworks that redefined the entire concept of anti-swarm operations. Rather than containing individual incursions, we would locate and destroy their primary breeding grounds. Rather than defending against their attacks, we would eliminate their ability to mount attacks. Rather than accepting their existence as a permanent threat, we would ensure their complete extinction. The casual discussion of species extinction as a strategic goal sent chills through every member of the Assembly. Chancellor Mordoon's patterns flickered with what could only be interpreted as existential concern. Ambassador, the galactic community has always sought solutions that minimize casualties and preserve life wherever possible. And that's admirable, Sarah Chen replied. But it's also why you've been fighting the same wars for centuries without achieving decisive victories. Humans prefer to solve problems permanently rather than managing them indefinitely. Admiral Thross leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed by the implications. Ambassador, what exactly are you proposing? Full membership in the Galactic Defense Force with strategic command authority for major threat elimination, she said simply. Humans will take responsibility for permanently resolving the security challenges that have plagued the galaxy for generations. The offer was simultaneously attractive and terrifying. The potential benefits were undeniable, but the cost of accepting human military leadership could fundamentally alter galactic civilization. General Carrick's studied the human strategic proposals with professional fascination. Ambassador, assuming the Council were to accept your proposal, what guarantees could you provide regarding human military restraint? Sarah Chen's expression became thoughtful. General, that's an interesting question. From a human perspective, military restraint is a tactical consideration rather than a moral imperative. We restrain our military activities when restraint serves our strategic objectives. We do not restrain them when restraint prevents us from achieving necessary goals. The honesty of the response was more chilling than any threat could have been. Commander Zektar felt the weight of his original warning settling over the assembly. Ambassador, you're describing an approach to warfare that prioritizes victory over all other considerations. Exactly, she replied with apparent satisfaction. We've observed that galactic military doctrine prioritizes process over results. You have extensive protocols for how to conduct warfare, but limited focus on actually winning wars. Humans prefer to focus on winning. Chancellor Mordoon's luminescent patterns displayed deep uncertainty. Ambassador Chen, the Council requires time to consider these proposals and their implications. Of course, Sarah Chen replied pleasantly. We understand that our approach represents a significant change from traditional galactic methodology. Take all the time you need to reach a decision. Her expression shifted slightly, becoming more serious. However, I should mention that the Crimson Fang has been planning a major assault on the core worlds for the past 6 months. Our intelligence suggests they intend to deploy their entire fleet in a coordinated attack within the next 30 days. The casual revelation of another major security threat demonstrated the depth of human intelligence capabilities. We've identified their staging areas, supply lines, and tactical objectives. If the Council decides to accept our membership proposal, we'd be happy to eliminate this threat before it materializes. If not, we'll simply observe how traditional galactic defense doctrine handles the situation. With that, Ambassador Chen terminated the communication, leaving the assembled leaders to contemplate a choice that would determine the future of galactic civilization. Commander Zektar looked around the silent conference room and realized that his warning had come too late. The humans were not seeking membership in their military alliance. They were offering to take control of it. The only question now was whether the galaxy would accept their protection or face the consequences of refusing it.